Hello and welcome to the Health Bridge podcast. This is your host, Holly B. I'm excited to have you here as always. Today, I have a great conversation with Jenny Harkelroad. Jenny is an author, a speaker, and a mind change teacher. With the power of the mind, Jenny overcame her past of chronic pain, of addictions, bad relationships, and unhappiness. She never knew how sweet life could be until she changed her mind, and that changed everything. Jenny has a really dramatic story to share of breaking her back, literally, on a mountain cliff. That event changed everything and gave her a ferocious appetite to transform lives and help others create what's missing in their lives. Jenny and her Balanced You team help others to transform their success, their health, their wellness, their relationships, and their business success so that they can bask in the love of life every day and accomplish the goals of health, wealth, and happiness. I met Jenny at a mastermind event that I went to recently, and her message is so in line with what I love to speak to as well, which is the power of the mind, which is recognizing your own limiting beliefs and having that recognition process be the door opening to you making huge, amazing shifts in your life and health, wealth, relationships, in spirituality, and just your overall happiness in your day to day living. I have Jenny on to really help us break down the science behind what it is we're doing when we shift our mindset. We look at the science of the subconscious mind and all of that programming that is always running our daily lives behind the scenes, and how we can actually make a shift in that programming, make these little degree changes that lead to massive gains over time and get us off of the hamster wheels, that programming that we are just constantly stuck in day after day. And we're not happy there, but we aren't recognizing that we are the ones that actually have the power to change our experience of life. So you're going to want to tune into this. You're going to want to learn about the 17-second rule. That is hugely important in how you start to make these incremental changes and how the energy of your thoughts affects you on a cellular level. We also dive into the 3 secrets of the mind, why you need to know about them, and how you can use the knowledge about them to begin to make those shifts. Stick around to the end as well, because Jenny walks us through a daily exercise that you can use to hone in on a desired state that you have, something that you wish to manifest in your life, and how to actually do a very short, quick daily exercise to start retraining and reprogramming that subconscious patterning in order to actually achieve it and bring it into fruition. So, with that being said, there is so much empowerment in this episode. Dive in, take notes, listen to it multiple times, and I can't wait to hear what you think. Jenny Harkelroad, thank you so much for being here. I heard your story recently. I heard you speak, and I you were totally speaking my language, and I know I had to bring you on the podcast to share you and your message. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I love sharing my story because I think it makes an impact for people, and I want everyone to live their very best life. So if I can give them some tools and tips and tricks and techniques, all the better.
So your story starts with an injury, a pretty severe injury, which you're going to get into. But it's interesting because I think, as we'll see, it was really the door opening for you to examine lots of things that had maybe been already going on behind the scenes in your life. So I'll let you go ahead and share your story, how you got into working with mindset, working with brain, essentially brain retraining, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. So it was August 10th of 2013. I was standing on this mountain ledge with my husband, and he said, if I was young and in shape, I'd jump off of here. And I think my pride got the better of me. I thought I was young and in shape. I'd been at the gym a lot. And when I landed from this jump, I heard a crunch in my back and I couldn't move. And I knew something was seriously wrong. And he tried to get me up. Our friends tried to get me up and they couldn't. And they ended up calling 911, and 911 sent in a ground crew. And the ground crew tried to get me up and they couldn't. So they ended up calling in life flight, and a hovering helicopter came to get me, zip lined me up, took me to the hospital. And when I awoke from all the morphine they had pumped me with, they told me that I had broken my back. It was just shocking news. I didn't quite it didn't quite register because I said, "Does that mean I can't go to Ashtanga yoga tonight?" They said, "Yeah, you're not going anywhere. You're not moving." Thankfully, I hadn't hurt my spinal cord, so I wasn't paralyzed. I was broken. And when you break your back, if it's just your back, not your spinal cord, it's a bone, and bones heal, right? So they told me you'll be in bed for about 6 weeks and then it'll heal and you'll get your mobility back and you can go back to your life. And I was excited about that in some ways, but in some ways not, because I actually didn't like my life, which most people didn't know. I was just putting on a happy face and faking it because I didn't know what else to do. I had what I thought I should have to be happy. I married my high school sweetheart. We have 4 beautiful children. I was super successful in real estate. We had a big fancy home and a bunch of other houses, the cars, the travel, all the things. I've got a religious background with a solid foundation. I love Jesus. What else do I need to be happy? What is my problem? I just wasn't happy. And also, I struggled with chronic physical pain, not just from breaking my back, but actually my whole life. In elementary school, I remember always being in the nurse's office with stomach aches. I remember when I was 12 years old, I got put on prescription pain pills for endometriosis. I remember that I struggled with chronic migraines and a lot of body pain in high school. And I was an athlete, so I was always working my body, but it hurt more than it should. In my 20s, I went into liver failure from all the ibuprofen I was taking. I didn't know you weren't supposed to take 30 ibuprofen a day. I guess I didn't read the bottle. Yeah, you can't do that for decades on end without some problems. Then I had surgery for the endometriosis. Then I had chronic bladder infections, UTIs. I got diagnosed with interstitial cystitis. They're talking about removing my bladder. It was just one thing after the next. And I ended up having a full hysterectomy. There's always something going on physically with me. But I put on a happy face and told everybody I was doing great because I didn't know what else to do. I ate healthy, I exercised. My dad's a chiropractor. He would adjust me. I was in alignment. I took a million herbs and supplements and vitamins. Why do I feel so bad? Not to mention, here's the interesting thing. I didn't like the career I was in, but I made myself keep doing it because, gosh, Jenny, look at your life. Boo hoo for you that you don't like it. Right? Suck it up, right? I didn't get along with my husband, and I didn't know how to fix that because we read books, we talked to our church leaders, we went to therapy, we had date night, still didn't like him. Like, how do you fix this? I had a terrible temper, everything would set me off. There was just all these things about my life that I didn't like. And what I didn't realize is all those things were causing all my physical things. I had no idea. I'm like, how unlucky am I that I have all this stress in my life and I also have all these physical ailments? How did this happen to me? Right. And I remember one time talking to a therapist about my marriage, and he said, you need to get your back better and then we can fix your marriage. Right. But they were one and the same. So what I learned over time from working with a medical doctor who, let me back up and say, for 3 years, instead of 6 weeks, I couldn't function. And after the 3 years, they gave up on me. I'd had major surgery, rods, screws, synthetic disc. I tried everything, natural, unnatural, even a rain dance. I would try it. I got introduced to a medical doctor right here in Escondido, where I live, North San Diego County, who said, you can heal yourself with your mind. Wait, what? No, I didn't know that. And that sounds crazy because it's my back, it's not my mind. But I'm desperate. I will try it. 6 sessions later, I was completely healed from my back pain. Like, not only could I sit and drive, I could do handstands and back bends. It was a literal miracle. And I went back to him and I said, thank you. And can you help me stop taking pain pills? Can you help me like my husband? Can you help me lose weight? Can you help me get rid of my terrible temper? Can you help me find a career? Can you help me fix my life? I want to like my life. And so one by one we did, and I became obsessed with the power of the mind. So much so that when people would call me to sell their $1 million homes, I would say, no, thank you. But did you know about the power of your mind? And the funny thing is now that was 2016, I started a business helping people program their mind for wellness and success. And to this day, it's 2024, I still get real estate calls. I must have been a really good marketer. And you know what I tell them? No, thank you. And you know about the power of your mind. My entire life transformed. And I might look like the same old Jenny, although I used to have long hair, but I feel nothing like her. I'm happy. I'm healthy. The pain is gone. I'm open. I'm curious. I'm loving. I'm understanding. I'm forgiving. I'm all these things I always wanted to be, but I just wasn't. This doctor taught me how to train my brain to create the life I wanted. And now I teach other people how to do that too.
Absolutely amazing. I mean, just the complete 360, like the complete turnaround of your entire life. I'm sure it didn't happen overnight, but it happened pretty quickly compared to the length of time that you were suffering with all these things, whether that was physical pain, emotional pain, just overall being unhappy with your life and the way it was playing out. How did you start to wrap your mind around the power of your own mind? How did
Yeah.
that process look for you?
So the doctor that I was working with used muscle testing. And if you're not familiar, for those of you listening to a muscle test is like a lie detector test, basically. It's a way that your body can tell you what's true and what's not at a subconscious level. And so I had grown up with muscle testing because my dad was a chiropractor. But how I saw muscle testing done with him was he would run his fingers down someone's spine and he would have them hold out their arm. And with his other hand, he would press down on their arm. And when he would get to a spot in their back where there was a disc out of alignment, a subluxation, all of a sudden they couldn't hold up their arm. And so he would know, that's the spot. Their body told him this is what needs to be adjusted. He'd adjust it, he'd touch it again. All of a sudden, immediately they could hold up their arm. So what I saw was when he first became a chiropractor, he had an x-ray machine so he could see what was out of alignment. Pretty soon he stopped using it. It got like a tarp put over it and started collecting dust because their body would tell him and he didn't need to x-ray them. And so I saw it that way. When I started working with this medical doctor, he also used muscle testing. And he said, Jenny, why does your back hurt? And I said, because I broke it, Dr. Warren. Of course, duh. And he pressed on my arm and my arm went down, meaning that's not why your back hurts. And I could physically feel that. And I thought, you're pressing too hard. It has to be because I broke it, right? And so it was the muscle test with him asking questions and muscle testing that helped me understand that connection that I was speaking about earlier, that really the pain was not because of my back. This was 3 years later. My back was better. It was the tension in my body that was hurting. And if you think of like lifting a weight and the more dumbbell curls you do, the more it burns. My back was burning. As soon as you stop lifting the weight, guess what happens? The burn stops. As soon as you stop the tension in your body, the pain stops. But the weird thing was, I didn't feel tension. I didn't feel like tight or like I was clenching my back, right? But I was subconsciously, and I didn't even know it. And I was so used to that feeling. And I just thought it was the rods, the screws, the whatever. No, it was me tensing my back. And it's a weird thing that some other doctors have discovered that when you have an injury, a lot of times it goes to a weak part of your body. And so the tension was going to that place. And I just thought my back wasn't better than it actually was. So it was muscle testing that was the secret, the aha, that I was like, okay, so my body, I can feel it. My body is saying my pain is from tension because of my marriage, my childhood, my job I don't like, or the list goes on and on.
Yeah. So the physical tension had an emotional component or an emotional root cause to it.
Absolutely. That was the total root cause, right? This was 3 years later. Our bodies are meant to heal.
Hmm.
Right? You break something, they say 6 weeks. Well, if you're not better in 6 weeks, then there's something else going on.
Hmm. And so, what I had started to say when we opened up the conversation was that the breaking of your back was that sort of acute situation that kind of tipped those dominoes that have been stacked up and stacked up over the years. And eventually, as those dominoes fell, 3 years in, you were finally able to track it back to those original dominoes that had been lined up, which was emotional tension from probably starting in childhood, I'm assuming, right?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, getting all the way back to childhood, you talk about the 3 secrets of the mind. Can you explain what those are and how learning about these different aspects of the mind can help us dealing with our issues, our current situations today?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 3 minds: conscious, subconscious, and superconscious. So we'll get into them a little bit each. So your conscious mind is your decision-making mind, right? I wanted to feel better. I was looking for a solution. I was looking for answers. I was actively doing something. Conscious mind, it's what we want. Subconscious mind is our programmed mind. When we were literally in our mother's womb till about 8 years old, our brain was in a theta state where it could be easily programmed. It's why children pick up languages so easy, right? They say, teach them young. They can be bilingual so easily, right? They're just a sponge. They just absorb. And scientists say it's so we can survive our environment. But what happens is we pick up a lot of negative programming too, from our family, from things that got passed down to them, or their bad habits or sayings or traits or experiences, their traumas and dramas. We pick up negative things along the way, and it becomes part of who we are, even though we might not even see it. For example, sometimes I'll meet somebody and I'll be speaking with them, and then they're like, "Oh, you're Tom's daughter? I can totally see that in how you speak and your mannerisms." And I'm like, "What? Like, what? What did I do? I don't even see it." Right? But we pick things up. It's why we speak the language our parents spoke, right? They don't speak English in the house and then you speak Chinese. No, you speak what you learn. But it's not just the language, it's also the health. Here's a fascinating thing: kids who get adopted have been studied and found to get the same diseases as the family who adopts them. A learned behavior. Cellular biologist Bruce Lipton, PhD, says 1% of people are born with disease in their genes. 95% of people die from disease. He says we're literally rewriting our gene to create the disease. And that's based on just how we're trying to deal with our environment. Now, this is all subconscious. Of course, we wouldn't be like, oh, I want to get the disease of my family. But it is a little bit programmed into us when we go to the doctor and they say, "What? Tell us your family history." And according to the cellular biologist, it's not even necessarily in your gene at birth. You rewrite it to be in your gene because it's learned. It's fascinating. So that's the subconscious. It's the automatic mind. It's how you think and feel and act and react automatically. When someone cuts you off on the freeway, how do you respond? Are you chill or are you like, oh, let me slow down so you can go ahead? Or are you like screaming out the window? That is, it's automatic. It's your knee jerk reaction. And according to the same cellular biologist, Bruce Lipton, he says 95% of the time, 95% of the day, we're run by our subconscious mind. We hop in the car to go to the store. How do we even get there? I don't know. We just remember the way. Guess what happens? By my house, they close some roads or doing some construction. I keep going the way the road is closed because it's my subconscious program to turn that way when I leave the house, right? The road has now been closed for a year and a half. So now I am trained to turn the other way. Guess what's going to happen when the road is open? I'm going to go the old way because I've been trained to go the old way. The subconscious is trained. And I used to think the subconscious just was like the automated processes of my body, like growing my hair and beating my heart and digesting my food. But it really is the lens through which we see the world. And when somebody says something to you or does something or doesn't do something, how you feel about it is based on your subconscious program. So one of the things I had to reprogram my mind for was I had a terrible temper and things would set me off like, "Yeah," right? I had to get rid of that. And I'm proud to say that I haven't been mad. This is true. You can ask my family, probably at least 5 years. I'm serious. Why? Because I trained my brain to be open and curious instead of like getting on the defensive and getting upset. I train my brain to be open and curious, loving, understanding, forgiving. Why? Because I want to be that way. I didn't like having a bad temper. That's a terrible feeling to feel like out of control mad. I didn't want to be that way. So that's the subconscious mind. It's your automatic. And it's why people get divorced. They're in like honeymoon law bliss land, and then they're in divorce court 10 years later. What happened? They started acting out of their subconscious program instead of speaking in poetry like they used to. They're now like focused on other things. And so they respond out of their subconscious. And if they have great programming, awesome. And if they don't, you're like, who is this person I married? Why are you so mean all of a sudden? Why don't you care? Why don't you pay attention? They're not trying. And that's because the conscious mind is set up to only focus on a thing or two or three at a time. And you just get out of the habit of that focus and you put your focus somewhere else, and they now get the leftovers. So you got to program the subconscious to be that person you were when you were trying automatically, right? So much more fun. It's why I've been married 29 years now, and it's like the best ever because I've trained my mind to get back to how it used to be.
I think just that right there gives people so much hope because I think so often we don't realize that we can affect those things.
Right,
Well, he made me mad. Of
right.
course I was mad. Of course I got angry. He didn't do this. I've asked him to do it a million times. Of course I got angry.
Yep.
Instead of realizing that maybe we can consciously make the effort to change that narrative, see things from a different perspective, experience things from a different perspective, and change the whole story.
Yeah. And that's the secret right there. Number one, you have to catch it consciously and be willing to change it, right? Because, like you said, I'm justified. In your own mind, you are, right? Do you want to be justified or do you want to be happy? So catch it. And then number two is retrain the subconscious, which we'll get into today, so that you are the new way. Because I'm telling you, for me, when I would get mad and I would try to get unmad, I couldn't. I was there already. Too late. I'm now mad. You're toast. I'm mad. All right. And that third mind is the superconscious mind. This mind was trying to talk to me, and here's what it sounded like. I'd be sitting in a real estate meeting, and my superconscious, my inner wisdom, my higher knowing would say, hey, what if you did a job you loved? Wouldn't that be amazing? What would that be? And I'd say, shut up. Look at your bank account. Look at your life. Look at you're able to juggle this with your 4 kids. There's nothing else you could do and make this kind of money. Stop it. And then the next month I'd be sitting in that meeting and I'd think, oh, what if you woke up excited about what you did? And that drill instructor, my conscious mind, my subconscious mind, they're like, oh no, your program is you have to look good. That was one of the things I picked up along the way. And right now, you look good. So you're not doing anything to mess this up. What would people think if you gave this all up, walked away from it? They'd probably think you failed at it. They wouldn't know. Just all of a sudden, you don't have all this stuff anymore and you're doing something else. What would they think of you? Go back right to the program. Subconscious, it's so powerful. So, what I teach people to do is get all three minds in alignment. Consciously, what do you want? Subconsciously, program that mind to support what you want and make sure it's what your superconscious wants. It's your purpose, your calling, your inner wisdom, your higher knowing. Don't just do it to do it. Don't just do it to pay the bills. Do it because that's why you're here. When you do something like that, you wake up every day excited. Might as well like, why do you get up so early and put on a suit every day? I'm like, because I'm changing the world. I'm excited about this. He was like, yeah, like 8 years later, still? Yeah, still, because I can make an impact with people by helping them know this information and then retrain their brain to totally change their life. You can look like the same person on the outside, but feel like a whole different person. And that's my favorite thing to do, especially when it comes to something chronic that you've tried everything and it feels hopeless.
Let's talk about that hopelessness, especially around the chronic health issues, because so many people have been stuck in the pain cycle, the Western medicine cycle, just like you were before, where there was always something that was happening. You fix one thing, then another symptom comes up, and then another symptom comes up, and it can feel so disheartening.
Yeah.
And I would like to suggest to people that there is another way. We can experience this in another way. Yes, maybe you have a chronic issue that isn't going to disappear. Maybe. I'm not saying that it won't. I would never say that. But maybe you have type 1 diabetes. Maybe you have autoimmune lupus and you really struggle with it. How can we learn to shift our experience with these things? And even if the illness doesn't go away per se, we can still have a different relationship with it
Yeah.
and experience it better.
Yeah. Those are powerful questions. So you can tell I'm a fan of Dr. Bruce Lipton, PhD. I recommend his book, The Biology of Belief. And he talks about how your belief changes your cellular response. So if you don't think something's possible, why would you even try? Why would you get your hopes up if it's not even possible? So the first thing is to realize it is possible. He says the only disease you cannot fix, according to him, with your mind, with your belief, is something that was manifest at birth. If you came out of your mother's womb with a disease showing up in that moment, his opinion is you can't change it. However, I have a client who has a daughter with Down syndrome. She's been doing some of this work, and her actual DNA is starting to change. It's pretty.
Wow.
Yeah. So, number one is believe in the possibility. Number two is there's a reason you're having the problem. Maybe it's Like me, I needed a smack upside the head. Like I was not getting it, right? If I would have just gotten better 6 weeks later, I would have gone back to my same old miserable life. And I feel bad saying miserable, especially now in the mindset I have, because I had, again, a husband, children, financially secure, like all these things. But isn't it weird that we can be in that space and still not be happy? So I'd go back to my same unhappy self. I really had to make a shift. My super conscious mind was talking to me like, you're on the wrong path. And I wasn't listening. So, is there a message or a lesson for you that you're not getting? Are you supposed to make some kind of drastic change in your life? And a lot of times it has to do with career, something you're doing every day. It's easy to say, oh, it's my husband. I need to get rid of him. I don't recommend that. It's usually something you're doing every day that's not your purpose. So I would look into that. The next thing is another doctor I haven't talked about yet, Dr. John Sarno. He wrote several books. He was a medical doctor at New York University Medical Center. His specialty was helping people overcome chronic pain. Three of his books: Healing Back Pain, The Divided Mind, The Mind Body Prescription. What he started to notice was, why do I have two patients that their x-rays look the same, but one chronic, like can't get off the couch. The other is on a soccer team running around, and we just caught the same image checking something else. Like, let's say it's degenerative disc disease. If that cripples someone, how come it doesn't cripple someone else whose images look the same? He got really curious about this and he started asking his patients, hey, tell me about your life. The people with chronic pain had traumas in their life, dramas in their life. They were perfectionistic. They were go-getters. They were do-getters. They were the opposite of let it roll off your back and life of the party, go with the flow type, right? They had tension in their body, and it was tension that was causing the pain. So he would have these seminars weekly at the hospital, and people would come and he would say, I know you have XYZ condition, but the reason you're hurting is actually because of the tension in your body being caused by the tension in your mind, being caused by the tension in your life, past, present, future. And he'd literally tell them, like, stop it. Stop the tension. If you do, you won't hurt anymore. 10,000 chronic pain patients he worked with, 9,000 of them healed from those lectures. Is that fascinating?
It's amazing.
Fascinating.
It's definitely something that I've seen with myself as well as with so many people that I've talked to that are experiencing some kind of chronic health issue. Is there is virtually always an emotional component that was a trigger.
Right.
For me, it was the immediate trigger was mono. I came down with mono, but why did I come down with mono?
Yeah.
I was just getting out of a really negative, unhealthy relationship that caused me an immense amount of emotional stress.
Yeah.
And even back then, when I came down with mono, before I was even really connected with health or with my body for that matter, I knew that it was related to me getting sick. It was like the years of that emotional trauma, that emotional stress
Yeah.
all culminated in that illness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Reminds me of a time I was traveling. I was actually in Switzerland, and they have like an Uber, but it's like ride share. So we get in, there's like this other lady in the car. And we were going a little way and we were just chit-chatting, and she was asking me what I do. And she said, oh, I love what you do. I believe in what you do. I've been healed from the kind of work you do. It's actually really popular in Switzerland. And she said, what happened to me was I was a nurse helping someone in their house. I got a phone call that my dad had passed away, and it like my back went out and it wouldn't get better for years. And I know it's because of that phone call. And yes, I was like helping someone, but I don't think it was the helping someone. It was the phone call. right? And I was able to heal myself because I connected it and I healed it. And I just thought, wow, Switzerland's ahead of its time. I love this. Yeah, so
Feel
good.
like
And this
yeah,
work is covered by insurance in Switzerland, brain training,
wow.
physiology, and yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I feel like Europe is ahead of the game when it comes to holistic and alternative
Yeah,
solutions to healing on all sorts of spectrums.
absolutely. Yeah.
One thing that I do want to point out is that when we're talking in this context, that subconscious mind that's running our systems 95% of our day,
Yeah.
not all of that is a bad thing, right? Like some of that does us good. Another woman, Andrea Marshall, who I've had on my podcast she speaks to their in a slightly different context, but she speaks to these things as like, I don't want to think about brushing my teeth every day, but I do. That's a subconscious program that benefits me. It helps me with my overall health because I've trained myself to brush my teeth every day. There are reasons why we're in some of these patterns that are for good, but sometimes we get in these patterns that maybe served us at one time, kept us safe when we were a child or in some situation that we found ourselves in. And then it became ingrained in our patterning, and now it's not serving us.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think that the awareness really needs to come into play of like getting curious. Why do I do these things that I do? Why do I get so angry all the time? What's behind these things? Is it really just that I'm mad that somebody cut me off on the road? Or is there some deeper root of tension that's triggering these things? And maybe I can go back and heal that root.
Yeah, absolutely. And psychologists say we have 50 to 80,000 thoughts per day, that 80% of them are negative, and that 90% are a repeat of yesterday. We have so much stinking thinking. We worry about the past, we fret about the present, we worry about the future. And it's like, just feel your feet, take a deep breath, right? Because what happens when we worry about something is the 17-second rule I talk about is a thought. It's just an electrical signal in your brain for 17 seconds. But when it goes on longer than that, it becomes a chemical reaction within your body. So you start to feel equal to the way you're thinking. And when you feel equal to the way you're thinking, it attracts like thoughts to prove to you why what you're thinking is true. And when that goes on for just over a minute, 68 seconds, it changes your energy field. It changes what you attract and what you manifest in your life. And so, like you said, that first thing is awareness. Catch it. You've got 17 seconds before you believe your own story. And maybe your story isn't even true, it's just your perception. And so, yes, the subconscious helps us in those automated processes so we don't have to think about when I stand up from here, how am I going to walk? We just know. But our thinking patterns, those really get in the way, negative thoughts. And it shows up. Here's how you know what you believe subconsciously. Look at your life. Your life is a printout of your subconscious program. Where life is easy, you have a program that supports you. Where life is hard, you're missing that program. So all you have to do is install that program. And I think I'm going to show you shortly how to do that.
Yeah, I would love that. And I love that you brought up the 17-second rule. I shared with you off camera that I've been aware of that 17-second rule. I talk about that 17-second rule. I learned it through Abraham Hicks, which some of the listeners may know. Some people might think it's just very woo-woo and out there, but that 17-second rule is really important in that time frame, like you said, of catching the thought as it's happening
Yeah.
so that you can switch that energy. But you, again, you have to be able to catch it. So how do people know? How can they determine when they have one of those thoughts that needs to be caught and switched? Is
Yeah.
there some wording that they should look for?
There's some wording for when they catch it.
Mhm.
And catching it is just listening to yourself. When you walk around the house, you're like, I can't believe my kids are such slobs. Do you want to believe that really? Or do you want to change that belief? Because whatever you believe, you manifest more of. So it's listening to yourself and saying, is that the reality I want to keep creating? If I don't, then I want to switch it. And the magic word or words, magic sentence is, how would I rather feel? My kids help out around the house. They pick up after themselves. They're neat and tidy. And I'm happy to pick up after my kids. Because as a mother of 4, I can tell you can drive yourself crazy. Like, I told you 1,000 times, stop leaving your shoes right in the front, whatever. So what about yourself? What if you're like, instead of yelling at my kid, how about I put their shoes away? And then you can say, oh, but that wouldn't teach them anything, right? And is that just another something that got passed down to you, that your kid's never going to learn how to pick up their shoes if you do it sometimes? You really have to question your thought process and what reality you want to create and what's worth going to battle over it. What's not. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that this is so powerful just to help people start to hone in on like just thinking twice when they have a thought.
Yeah.
Have the thought and then rethink the thought. Does
Yeah.
this sit well? Does this not sit well?
Yeah. That's so powerful because we assume that what we think is true, but what we think is just a filter of our belief system. If we had a different belief system, if I was you and you were me, we'd see what we're seeing different. It's like putting on glasses, right? A new lens. This looks different now because I'm seeing it through a different perception. So we can change our perception. And that's so powerful because we
Yeah.
don't have to be stuck in negative feelings. And I don't know about you, but in the past, I used to have a lot of them. And I didn't like feeling bad emotionally or physically. I want to be happy. I want to enjoy life. Like, life should be joyful, not every day a grind or unhappy and hard. And yeah,
Agreed. And I've noticed with myself in particular that those limiting beliefs disguise themselves as facts,
yeah,
disguise themselves as reality.
right.
I would always say I'm not being negative, I'm being realistic.
Yeah, huh? There you go. That's
And
the
I learned to say,
one.
yeah, then I learned to say, is it realistic?
Yeah.
Maybe I need to relook at this.
Yeah. I love Byron Katie in her book. She says, is it true? And when I first read that, this was before I learned any of my work. And I thought, what is she talking about? Is it true? If you feel some way, yeah, it's true. You feel that way. But what she was saying is like, would it hold up in a court of law? Does everybody agree with you? Is it like scientific fact? No, it's how
Right.
I see it. Right. So do you like how you see it? Or do you want to change how you see it? It's totally up to us. So for me, I'd rather change how I see it.
Yeah. And so, speaking of changing how we see it, I would love for you to walk us through an exercise.
Absolutely. Let's do it. So here's the thing. Your subconscious mind is programmable just like a computer. And it was already programmed and you're just running your programs. And so you can change your programs. Now, changing your programs is a daily activity. Why? Because as I mentioned, 50 to 80,000 thoughts per day. There's so much in there to work on. Now, at first, it might be like turning a ship around. It might be like, wow, I have so much to do. But after days and weeks and months and years of training your mind to support you, pretty soon it's like driving on a straightaway. You never hold your hands totally still, even when you're driving straight, right? It's always like just the littlest tiny course correction. How is that happening? Your subconscious is powerful, right? To know, like, oh, we need a quarter inch this way. Oh, now a half inch that way. So for me, it was like, I wanted to get out of pain. I wanted to love my husband again. I wanted to get rid of my bad temper. I wanted to lose weight. I wanted to change careers. It was like massive things that I did. And now it's just little things like, I didn't really feel comfortable. Like I went to my son's school the other day and I didn't feel comfortable there. And I thought, why am I not feeling comfortable here? It's because growing up, school was stressful for me. And so I said, you know what? I want to repattern my mind. So whenever I walk into school, I feel comfortable. It wasn't a huge deal. I wasn't like having a panic attack or anything. I just felt like I don't like it here. So you can make these little tweaks. So how you do it is you catch yourself and you say, do I like this story? Do I want this story? Do I want this reality? If the answer is no, how would I rather feel? And then you write it in a positive goal statement. It sounds like a positive affirmation. So maybe because people listening here today maybe have some chronic health challenges, maybe the goal statement is my mind and body are healed and I feel fantastic. That's the goal. That's how they want to be. And so what they're going to do, they're going to write that statement down and then they're going to cross their arms and set their hands on their shoulders like they're giving themselves a hug. And then they're going to close their eyes and they're going to start saying that goal they wrote down. Make sure that goal sounds like it already exists in the present tense. They're going to say it for about a minute, which is about 5 really slow breaths. And while they're saying it, their conscious mind might be saying like, this isn't true. You don't feel good. You have XYZ problem, condition. You've tried all these things. Just, it's fine. Your conscious mind can argue with you. Just keep saying the affirmation, the goal statement. The reason you're like this is because you have something called a brain bridge, a corpus callosum that separates both hemispheres of the brain. And when you cross your arms, it opens that brain bridge so you can now build a new belief, which changes your cellular response. And your eyes are closed because it slows your mind down into a more theta programmable state. So you're saying it for a minute, and then you uncross your arms and recross them so the other arm is on top. So you're hugging yourself again, just with the other arm on top. Say your goal for another minute. You'll probably notice your mind starts to quiet down a little bit. You might notice some weird aches and pains popping up because whenever you're having a emotion come into consciousness and the subconscious doesn't think it's safe, it represses it and causes pain to distract you. That's a fascinating thing to know about. So just, it's okay. I feel it. It's fine. Keep saying it. When you're ready, uncross your arms and start tapping your fingertips together, your thumb as well, with your palms separated like there's a ball between your hands. And you can tap them fast or slow or medium, it doesn't matter. Saying the goal again for another minute or 5 breaths with your eyes closed. And then when you're done with that, holding your fingertips together and repeating the goal statement again for another minute. When you're done with that, you open your eyes, you give yourself a little congratulations, pat on the back, as you literally just built a new pathway in your brain. And then you ask yourself this question: what action can I take to help create this new reality consciously? I just created it subconsciously, like spiritually created it. Now, how do I bring it into the real world, the 3D realm, the conscious realm? How do I create this? And so, what is it? Is there something you can do for your health and wellness that would help lock in this belief or start you down this path? It might be reading one of the books I mentioned. It might be catching your thoughts, right? Just what action can you take? And I don't want it to be a physical action like, I need to go to the doctor again, like something that's going to lock in that old belief, right? And disclaimer, I am not a doctor or psychologist or scientist, or I have no medical degrees, no science degrees. I've just learned this stuff from healing myself and helping clients heal and studying with other doctors and scientists and neuroscientists. I'm not saying don't go to the doctor. I'm not saying your condition doesn't exist, but I am saying that I believe you can change it with your mind. That's powerful.
Ah, so powerful. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. You actually, and I know we're coming up on time here, but you actually had shared with me that you had a PhD study some of your techniques, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. A neuroscientist. So you said something earlier about this might sound a little woo, like the energy field or something like that. He literally has a machine that reads your energy field. He has machines that read your brain waves. It's no longer woo, it's scientific. And he can watch what happens in your brain when you think something negative versus something positive, and he can watch it change your energy field in real time. It's fascinating. So we did a couple studies with him. One was real time, like doing this work. How does it change things right now? We did it in person. We also did it over Zoom because nowadays, like all of our clients basically are on Zoom. In the past, before the pandemic, people like to meet live. We're on Zoom. We help people all around the world. And so he tested the results on Zoom, same result being in person or on Zoom. Fascinating. And then the second study he did with us was here's your brain and your energy field. Now we're going to do 12 weeks of brain change. And now we're going to study your brain and energy field again and see how they're different. And what he thought was that this process would change the theta brain of most of the participants. What he found was that this process changed every brain wave pattern of every participant. He was blown away.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I was not surprised because of the results people get, right? I just hadn't seen the science behind it, but I already knew it worked because people would say, the problem is gone. How did that happen? Yeah, you changed your brain, it changed the cellular response, it changed how the proteins reacted in the cells, and guess what? Problem solved.
How quickly can people expect to see shifts
That's
when
a
they start work like this?
Yeah, that's a really great question. If someone goes to my website, we have our last 600 clients tracked and their results on our website. So you can see the results people report. We have it broken down between health and wellness, relationships, and professional success. And in those three categories, we have it broken up between short term goals, something people think they could accomplish in a month or less, and long term goals, something people think they could accomplish in a month or more. And if you average it all together, our private clients report a 57% improvement after one brain exercise.
Wow.
Yeah. If people are doing the work on their own through like our wellness portal or some of our programs, they report a 41% improvement after one brain exercise. So works a little better to work with us, the professionals, but it still works doing it on your own.
That's still an amazing percentage on your own.
One brain exercise. So if you want better results, do more brain exercises.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible, Jenny. I believe you have something to share with our listeners.
Yeah. So the last book I wrote is called Breaking to Be Me, and it's the secret to overcoming chronic pain. And so it just dives a little deeper into everything that we touched on today. So if you want more information about overcoming your chronic conditions, mental, physical, emotional pain, and you can download a PDF of that book at no cost. It's a number one bestseller. Just go to balancedyou.org/book and you can grab it there.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Is there any last thoughts that you want to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, believe. Yeah, change the story. You literally can create anything you want in your life. And so I've presented a solution today. So I hope you'll open your mind to it and I hope you'll use it every day. Getting your mind in shape is like getting your body in shape. It's not a one and done. We got to keep working on it because life changes, things come up, right? And so we want to keep our mind in the positive because our life is a printout of our subconscious program. So if you don't like the printout, you got to change the program. And it's a 5-minute daily action to do it.
Incredible. Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate this conversation so much. I will put your contact information in the show notes so everybody can find you and reach out to you with any questions.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jenny. Jenny has such a great way of explaining all the concepts that we discussed in this conversation. I think sometimes it can be really hard for people to grasp why it is that we have such a power of our own mind and why it is that we are really at the root of all of our stuckness at the root of all of our just the gunk in our life that we are sick of experiencing, but we don't know how to again get out of that hamster wheel. Understanding it on the level that Jenny has explained it to us gives us that hope, gives us that light at the end of the tunnel that's like, okay, there is actual science to why I can make changes and shift my life experience. So I hope that you took this conversation as very empowering. I suppose we could see it as like, geez, I've been doing this to myself my whole life. That's way too much to put on your shoulders. It's not about that. It's not about being down on yourself for creating some of these patterns. Remember that so much of your patterning is what you were programmed with at a very early age and without us even realizing it. So none of that weight is on you. The only weight that's on you right now is that you now have the knowledge to move forward and know that you can make shifts, you can make changes for the better, and you can create an experience in your life that is different than you've had before, one that you've always desired but never knew how to achieve. She's opening the pathway to you creating this new life. So please take advantage of the free download that Jenny has offered. There's going to be so much more information in that book than we could touch on just here in this short conversation. Reach out to Jenny. I really just want you to come away from this conversation understanding how powerful your mind really is. And again, that is why I start with discussions on mindset. That's why we start coaching through limiting beliefs and how to work through those, how to look at our blocks and barriers, how to clarify our desired state so that we can start to move forward in our health experience and in our life experience in a more empowered way that opens the doors to possibilities of change versus constantly fighting against those blocks that we have in place, those patterns that we have in place that we're not even conscious of or aware of. So please reach out to me, apply for a clarity call with me. This is where we can get really focused on your current health experience and see if we're a good fit to potentially working together and working through some of your health challenges so that you can really regain that new lease on life. We can work on regaining that energy that you've lost and reconnecting you with the passions that you have in life or the passions that you want to develop. Reconnect you with the possibilities of creating passion in your life where maybe currently you don't have any. So let's have a powerful conversation together, apply for a call, reach out to Jenny. One last ask is please share this podcast episode with one person that you know who could benefit from it, because I know that you know somebody that needs to hear this message. If the whole world could hear this message, we would be in an entirely different state altogether. So let's reach out one person at a time and share with them that they are an incredibly powerful being and that they can shift their living experience. Thank you so much for listening in, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Health Bridge podcast.